Grandfather fell for a phone scam, but his grandson took unbelievable revenge from scammers. Frank was enjoying a peaceful evening at home when his phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something urged him to answer. A man introduced himself as Officer Daniels from the police department. His voice was serious as he said, "I'm afraid it's about your grandson, Danny." Frank's heart pounded. Danny was the only family he had left. He had raised him after his parents passed away. Frank could barely speak as he asked what happened to him. The officer explained that Danny had been arrested and needed $10,000 for bail to be released that night. Before Frank could fully process what was happening, a familiar voice came through the phone. "Grandpa, it's me, Danny. I need your help." His voice sounded scared and desperate. Frank's hands trembled as he listened. Danny had never been in trouble before, but he sounded so real. He couldn't let his grandson stay in jail. Without hesitation, he followed the officer's instructions and transferred the money, hoping it would help. Hours later, Frank heard the front door open. Danny walked in, smiling. Frank froze. The color drained from his face. "Danny?" he whispered. Danny frowned, confused. "Grandpa, what's wrong?" With shaking hands, Frank told him about the call, the officer, and his desperate plea for help. Danny's face darkened with realization. What he did for revenge was shocking. Danny clenched his fists in anger. His grandfather had been tricked by criminals who used AI or voice recordings to impersonate him. They had stolen his savings, money he had set aside for the future. Frank felt ashamed and foolish, but Danny reassured him. "It's not your fault, Grandpa. These scammers target kind people like you." But Danny wasn't just going to report it. He was going to get the money back. As a cybersecurity expert, Danny had the skills to track and hack the scammers. He traced the phone number, bank transactions, and IP addresses linked to the fraud. Within hours, he had located their entire operation, a scam center running from an abandoned warehouse. Danny hacked into their accounts, gaining access to all the stolen money. Not just his grandfather's $10,000, but millions of dollars stolen from other victims. He transferred every last cent out of the scammers' accounts, locking them out before they could react. Once the money was secured, Danny didn't keep it. Instead, he did something incredible. He went to the police with all the evidence: transaction records, fake call scripts, voice recordings, and IP logs. He explained how the scam worked and gave the entire recovered amount to the authorities, instructing them to return it to all the victims who had been scammed. The police were stunned. With Danny's evidence, they were able to shut down the scam ring and arrest several criminals involved. A few days later, Frank received a call from the police. His money, along with the money of other victims, was being returned. Holding the check in his hands, he felt relief. Not just for himself, but for the many others who had been scammed. Danny didn't stop there. He used his expertise to create an online guide to educate people about scams. He spoke at events, teaching others how to recognize fraud before falling victim. With his connections in cybersecurity, he helped law enforcement track more scam networks and shut them down. Frank looked at his grandson with pride. "You didn't just get my money back. You helped so many others.